Okay, we're on item number 5 right now. This is public comments for items that are not on this agenda, but are under the purview of this commission. Do we have any comments in the audience or on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. Item 6 is consent calendar. We have minutes of meeting from several years ago that were never published, December 14th, 2022. Do we have an approval of these minutes? Do I have a motion to approve? I'll make the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, unanimous for the 4 of us. Okay, next is presentation. We have a discussion of the objective design standards that we had as part of the open house. I won't go into much about it because we discussed it already, and we'll just go to our consulting firm for their presentation. And Nicole, did you have something though?
Yes, quick announcement for members of the public joining us via Zoom. Please be aware that this is a special DRC meeting that was called to order at 6 p.m. For the last hour, the DRC has hosted an open house on the draft objective design standards here in the community hall at the library. We are now resuming the regular DRC meeting, which will be broadcast on Zoom going forward per our normal procedures. As a reminder, access to public meetings via Zoom is a courtesy and is not always available. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And the consultant, go ahead.
I'm actually going to do a brief intro
Oh.
before turning it over to the consultant.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Not a problem. I wanted to give a very brief history of this project, where it's been and where it's going, and just make a few notes before turning it over. So for everyone's background, in 2019, the city adopted objective design standards for multifamily and mixed use with residential projects. This was termed phase 1 of the objective design standards, or ODS. More recently, in 2024 and 25, the city adopted its 6th cycle housing element and immediately updated the general plan land use element and zoning to align with that housing element. The city is now turning to phase 2 of the objective design standards to expand the functionality of these standards and comply with state law, requiring that only objective standards be applied to ministerial reviews. The phase 2 process began in June 2025 with a joint study session with the City Council, Planning Commission, and DRC all together, at which the DRC was directed to work with staff and the consultant to develop the draft ODSs. This DRC held its own meeting at which it formed a working group to conduct this drafting. The working group has met 3 times over this fall with staff and Lisa Wise Consulting in order to create the draft that's before us now. And so this DRC meeting we're holding at the moment is to invite public comment and feedback, hence the open house, and to allow the DRC in its full form to review and offer guidance on outstanding questions pertaining to the ODS. If it's ready, it can vote to approve the ODS, which would actually be a vote to recommend approval, in which case the Planning Commission would be the next review body, which would be held on December 15th. If it's not ready to recommend approval, this item would be continued to the DRC's next regular meeting on December 8th. I do want to note that the resolution that's attached to the staff report, in case the DRC is ready to move for recommendation, does call out a recommendation of approval to the City Council directly. Since the staff report's publication, we have determined that the correct location for the objective design standards is within the zoning code itself, and a zoning code text amendment requires review by the Planning Commission as well. Therefore, I would suggest that if the DRC is ready to move forward and recommend the ODS forward, it would make an edit to the resolution, changing the body that it's referring to. So it would recommend approval to the Planning Commission instead of the City Council. This is an edit that can be made on the fly. It's not changing the content of what's being recommended. With that, I'd like to introduce our consulting team from Lisa Wise Consulting, who will give the presentation on the draft ODS. We have Monica Sidlick, Cal Kurtz, and David Bergman. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Arlie. I'm Monica Sidlick from Lisa Wise Consulting, joined by David and Cal. And we're here to discuss and present to you the objective design standards for multifamily and mixed use development that we've been working on with the design, with the DRC working group over the last couple of months. I'll talk a little bit about the project background that Arlie already sort of went through quickly. I'll talk about the project, sort of how we've gotten to the material before us tonight. I'll do a brief overview of the standards. These are the material on the that's displayed on the boards that we just looked at. And then we look forward to everybody's feedback about the standards. Okay, so I'm going to back up just a little bit. We, LWC, we've been working with the City of Lafayette for a little bit over a year. So we're a planning, economics and implementation firm. We began working with the City of Lafayette shortly after the adoption of the housing element. And we began working with the city on implementing key policies in the housing element. Once the housing element was adopted, a number of policies and programs needed to be implemented, and the first of those was some initial rezoning. So we've been working with the city staff for a little over a year. Last fall, the initial rezoning, the bulk of the work was developing new zones that are identified in the housing element. So the policies are listed here on this slide, and essentially it was new zones to support up to 60 dwelling units per acre. So we worked on that from all of last fall, and those that rezoning work was adopted in January of this year. And then beginning this year, we initiated a new project with staff, which is implementing a few other programs in the housing element, specifically updating the objective design standards that the city adopted in 2019. So these are the programs that we're looking to implement. We began just looking at those existing design standards and thinking how we could improve upon them, we could expand them, and we could make sure, most importantly, they would speak to the development that would be supported under the new zones, the zones that were adopted in January of this year. So we're looking at what are the design standards we need to support residential, multifamily, and mixed-use development up to 60 units an acre in primarily the downtown of Lafayette. So looking a little bit at a brief look at the process so far, we initiated this project earlier this year. We were here in June at a joint study session of the Planning Commission, Council, and the DRC. It was determined that we would work closely with a working group of the DRC on developing draft standards. Those are shown in these, the meetings shown in October, and we are back before you with a complete set of design standards and looking forward to the communities and the full DRC's input. So a brief recap about ODS. As we know, cities all across California are adopting these in response to legislation at the state level that facilitates ministerial review, streamlined review of residential projects. So that's multifamily and mixed use. So SB 330 requires a ministerial review pathway, which is non-discretionary for residential projects. And as part of that, the state encourages local jurisdictions to develop objective design standards to be used as criteria for that ministerial pathway for residential projects. And the advantages of this are that the community can identify what do we as a community want to see in new multifamily development. So where will the updated standards apply? Well, right now, the objective design standards you have on the books apply just in the downtown. The updated design standards will apply to multifamily and mixed use throughout the city. And that means all of the zones where multifamily and mixed use is supported, and those are the zones that are shown outlined in red on the zoning maps legend, largely in the downtown with a few scattered sites outside of the downtown. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the process that we've gone through over the past few months and how we have developed the standards that are before you for your review. First, we dug deep into what do you have on the books already? What policies and goals has the city adopted that should guide this work? We looked at the general plan. We combed through it for goals and policies that helps us determine what these standards should be. The general plan emphasizes character and patterns of development, respecting the natural environment and the small town character. We looked at the downtown specific plan, also important to guide the development of these standards. The downtown specific plan emphasizes the pedestrian experience and points to specific plans that describe the character of certain areas in the downtown. And these areas are important to the downtown, and the updated standards will apply to these areas. So we looked at how the downtown specific plan describes these areas. We looked at the downtown design guidelines, also important documentation to inform the design standards. The existing downtown design guidelines document has lots of guidance and lots of clues about what the community is looking for in terms of building placement, outdoor space, development near creeks, landscaping, parking, and the massing and size of buildings, as well as design. So we took all this to heart in developing the draft. We looked at what we saw. We looked at the forms and the rhythms of existing development in the downtown and near the transit station, around the downtown. We looked at new projects. How have these come to be? What sort of discussions did these proposals stimulate among the DRC, among the Planning Commission, among the community? And what did we learn from these? And what do we want to take going forward as we refine the design standards? So we looked at existing buildings on Mount Diablo Boulevard, Oak Hill, on Huff Street, on Lafayette Circle, and tried to understand about the evolution of these projects. We looked at the existing objective design standards. We understood, we dug into it to see how do recent and existing projects measure up to these? What has been the reception? How has the community received them? We've looked at how they work and what they address, and how these standards are evaluated. Is it yes, no? Is it based on points? And we made sure we had a good handle on what are we starting with. And they address a lot of the same things that we're addressing in the updated standards. We listened to all of you and the community and the Planning Commission and the council at a June meeting. We understood that the point system wasn't working very well. We understood that we need diagrams. We understood that we want to talk about windows and facade design and composition. We understood that we want to dig deeper into building materials. We understood that the standards should enforce a pedestrian scaled experience and streetscape, that we're looking for open spaces, and that we really want to shape our streets. And as I mentioned earlier, we worked closely with a DRC working group, 2 members of the Design Review Committee, and in 3 intense working sessions and a lot of back and forth between, we talked about all of the design topics that are in the document, including others that we decided to take out, new topics that eventually made their way in. And we discussed all of these topics at length. To briefly summarize what we talked about, we thought that less is more. We want applicants to use this ministerial pathway and make it attractive. We don't want a build to line or a maximum setback. We want to keep the existing upper story step backs. And we want to keep the 85% requirement of the third story that's already identified in your existing ODS. We don't need anything else. We looked at length about what are the building chunks, the building volumes that we want along rights of way. Where do we require a break in building massing? We tried out different distances, and we arrived at what's before you. We looked at, on a finer scale, facade composition and building articulation. What's the right requirement? When do we require a base, middle, top of buildings? Again, looking at examples and thinking about what we want to see from the right of way. We talked about surface parking. When a development includes surface parking, what do we want to require of that? We talked about entry design, that we do want a projection and recess or some sort of covered protection for shared entries into buildings. We don't want to look at individual unit entries to the exterior. Again, we looked at front yard landscaping, decided to keep what's in the existing standards. The design of open spaces on the ground and elevated open spaces, and everything else in the ODS. And we came to a decision about what we wanted in the draft. So the next series of slides really goes through a lot of it's the material that we looked at on the boards in the hallway. So we'll start out with the purpose statements. These are not on the boards, but because the updated ODS will be a new section in the code, like all other articles of the code, we start out with purpose statements. So we crafted these with the help of the design review committee working group and developed a series of bullet points to really identify what are we after with these ODS. We talked a lot about the semi-rural character and what does that mean in terms of building design. What can you see from the streetscape? From the street, how visible is parking? What is the streetscape like? So we describe that here in the purpose statements. And now, okay, so looking at the standards themselves from the beginning, massing, we've got massing requirements for buildings up to 3 stories and a different massing requirement for buildings 4 stories or more. For long buildings, the required break in building massing, what is it like? It's got to be usable. It's got to be a publicly accessible open space or common open space. It has to have a usable dimension and include amenities to make it usable and comfortable. Zooming in a little bit, what sort of articulation do we want to require? Based on the length of the building, a series of design elements are required every X number of feet, and those are identified in your draft as well, with a list of potential of articulation elements identified in the draft. Then we looked at building articulation, the base, the top, examples of palettes that cohere into a recognizable building design. We looked at upper story step back. So here's a diagram of the requirement that you already have, which is that the 3rd story of a 3-story building must be 85% of the floor area of the lower stories. And that difference has to be, that 15% difference must be at the street frontage. So we can see that here in this building. And we kept that. We've got standards for roof variation. We don't want boring roofs, essentially. We want the roof to lend character to the overall building design. So we have a list of design options for building roof design. We understood privacy and direct views into residential living spaces as a priority for the community, especially given the higher density residential developments that are allowed. So we developed standards for privacy. Now for mixed use development, we want to make sure the streetscape is active and engaging. So for non-residential ground floor design, we looked at transparency, usability of spaces, and ways to limit blank walls to make sure that pedestrians feel comfortable and safe and engaged along the street frontage. We looked closely at windows. How much is too much? What's the threshold? And we looked at window construction. So in an effort to prevent flat and unarticulated and windows that look low in quality, we have 3 options: a recessed window, a trim, or a lintel design. We looked at building materials. We identified materials for primary and secondary, over 50% of the surface area versus less than 50%, and have a list of permitted materials and a list of prohibited cladding materials. And we developed a range of hue and saturation value to identify colors, the ranges that are appropriate for primary building colors for multifamily and mixed use. This is a combination of light reflecting value and hue saturation value to get at the right colors for the different parts of the spectrum. We looked at parking and site design. We talked a little bit about surface parking. When a building includes surface parking, we want to make sure it's not front center and that it's screened. And for structured parking, same. It's got to be screened. It can't be the dominant visual element of a building facade. Creeks and landscaping are so integral to downtown Lafayette. So we worked standards into the document, many of which are already part of the existing design standards, but to require connectivity, visibility, visual connection, and also continuous access to trails and creeks. And we generally kept the street-facing yard landscaping and tree requirements that are in the existing standards. So that's a quick look through all of the standards that are in the draft before you tonight. And we would like to open the meeting up to a discussion. We have a few discussion points. I think these are articulated in your staff report, but we also want to emphasize that anything is on the table for discussion.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have questions? Yes, John, go ahead.
I do have some questions. I think they're for the working group, so whether that's Richard or Glenn or our consultant team, you can decide who best to answer. First, I'd like to say I'm pretty impressed with your work. This is a very interesting task to take character and try to express it objectively, largely in numbers. And I think you've done a really great job, all of you, so thank you. But that said, I got some questions and a couple of comments. Looking at building articulation, I didn't understand why 4-story buildings require less articulation than 3-story buildings. I'm wondering if you could answer that. Should I do a bunch of questions or just one at a time here?
One at a time. One at a time is probably best.
So this is 6-3905.
I'll try to answer that. We basically had 35-foot high buildings and 60-foot high buildings. So it's really not a 4-story building. It's probably a 6-story building. And that's why we thought, what are you seeing from ground sidewalk level on those two comparisons? And that helped determine the massing, ornamentation, so on and so forth.
And also, I would just add that we looked at examples, that were already in the city or in the vicinity where, larger building, I guess, as Glenn was just saying, you don't have that visibility at the top of the building. It tends to disappear into the sky. So having a base is important, having that street level 2-story presence is important. But once you get in a taller building, the upper part we thought was best just not including the top per se.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Could I possibly add to that?
Oh, please.
Thank you. One other thing that we looked at was where those taller buildings would be taking place, and we noticed that the new 60 zones that LWC worked on earlier this year, those zones occur along the freeway. So those are not along Mount Diablo. Those are not in those areas where the streetscape and what the pedestrian is experiencing is as apparent. And one thing we noticed is that for pedestrians, if you went a whole 50 feet without seeing balconies or other sorts of articulation, it would be very apparent. Versus for the taller buildings that are, we noticed, of course, because of where the zones are located, because they are further away from that streetscape, it's not as important. And we wanted to be sensitive to what a developer would see as being preventing, affordable development.
Thanks. That's an interesting point. I wonder if somehow, so that's the zoning pattern that we're establishing now. Should zoning change, and should we be at some point allow taller buildings in pedestrian areas? Would we reconsider the way this is defined, or is there some extra text that might be added here to make it more specific to that the freeway location makes all the sense in the world? But the day we allow that on Mount Diablo, then, which we may, not soon, I hope, you understand what I'm saying?
I understand, but
I can perhaps speak to that just in that we're in the process of updating our documents to comply with and conform to our existing 6-cycle housing element. The housing element is an 8-year cycle. It's unlikely that we will be looking at large and significant changes to these documents before the next housing element cycle, at which time likely all of these documents will be updated again. And so it's, I think it's an excellent point, but it's likely that we're not going to be changing the documents to allow for taller development on Mount Diablo within the in-between of that period.
Okay, thank you. The next question I had is regarding, it's kind of it was a funny, what to me seemed a little odd. In colonnades, which is figure 6-3905.02, it's paragraph right below that on page 12 in the handout. Non-structural columns are not permitted. Now, I'm an architect and I kind of like honesty in architecture, but the fact is a pedestrian-friendly rhythm might be different than a structural bay. And so I am curious as to your logic here.
we had to eliminate subjective words. At first, we had it as being functional, appear functional. And we couldn't use the word functional because it's subjective, so we tweaked it.
Well, you could have a functional structural column that looked like a twig. My personal preference would be to drop that requirement.
Okay.
And then I was also curious under parking configuration design 6-3906, item 2A, There is an exception to the surface parking requirements between Dolores Drive and Risa Road on the north side of Mount Diablo. Could one of you explain the rationale, please?
Yes. I'll take that. That is the location north of Mount Diablo where there is a very sloped site. There is currently, I don't believe there is currently any projects that we know of that are going to be happening there. But we wanted to be sensitive to the fact that those parcels, because they are so sloped, it is that creating or requiring that parking standard could be limiting to those sites.
Okay, thank you. Then on windows and balconies, 63907. Item 2 says total surface area of windows and doors shall not exceed 60% of the area of any upper story facade unless required by Title 24 Energy Code. I'm not sure the Energy Code would ever require an excess of that amount. The Energy Code typically encourages small windows for the thermal envelope. So that paragraph may require adjustment. Thank you. I see you're nodding. Moving to 630, I'm sorry, I'm still in the same section, 63907. Item B3, we talked when we were outside about the 3 window options that were presented and the one with the lintel. To me, just as it is right now, it still feels like it would allow something very flat and minimally articulated to be acceptable, where the other 2 have a little depth to them. And I would suggest that requiring a small projection of the lintel to get a little shadow line there would be helpful. And I don't know if that's an inch or an inch and a half, but something in that range.
Okay, can we limit this to just questions at this time?
I'm sorry. I'm
And
sorry. I have more questions. Question on the next item, privacy and views, 63908B, suggests that balconies have a wall of 4 feet in height. I'm curious how you came to that height. It seems tall. I mean,
I'm wondering if it was 4 feet in depth and it somehow it's 42 inches or
that would make more sense.
it's 42 inches. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't realize that, but it's 42 inches.
Okay, so maybe that's just a correction. And then in the same section, could one of you explain the rationale that the minimum 30-degree angle bay window or around the corner window, how that, especially the bay window, how that helps control or deal with privacy issues?
Yeah, so the strategies listed are ways to limit direct views between residential living spaces. So the idea is if it's a tall sill height, or if it's glazed, or if it's at an angle, it's not quite so direct into living spaces.
Well, I'm not sure I follow the angle one, but let me just see if I have any more. Oh, one comment on wording, which I made outside. Use the phrase concrete block rather than cinder block. Cinder blocks haven't been used in generations. I think that's all my questions. I have a couple of other.
You're not from Pittsburgh.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Richard, Travis? Okay. We'd like to move on to community comments, and we ask that you turn in a speaker slip. And we have a couple to begin with, and we have one person on Zoom that wants to speak, or
Yeah, so we'll begin with the speakers who are in the room. I currently have 2 speaker slips. First speaker, Libby Henry, followed by Elliot Hudson. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes. Usually DRC is in a different room, so just kind of to orient everybody to the way the timer works in here. On the lectern, there's a box. There are 3 lights: green, yellow, and red. Once the timer hits 30-second countdown, it'll turn yellow. And when the time is up, you'll see a red light. You'll also hear a noise, a chime will happen. But please let me know if you have any questions, and I will hand it over to Libby Henry.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Libby Henry, longtime resident of Lafayette since I was 3. And so I've seen a lot of changes. And my comment has more to do with kind of an overall picture of this. I want to say that I do appreciate how much work and thought was put into this presentation and, keeping in mind the character of Lafayette that those of us who live here love and want to keep. But just for the commissioners and other staff, the big picture of all of this, you need to know, is something that this city and 483 other cities in this state should be fighting against. And I know that a lot of them already are. A lot of people already are. A housing crisis was declared with no evidence, no studies, no statistics, no examples of any city in the state of California that has a shortage of housing. And the severe shortage of housing and the phrase affordable housing are not synonymous. But we've been subjected to being forced by HCD, by our state legislature, into 500 housing bills, most of which are unconstitutional because they are mandates to cities where cities are being made to be responsible for building affordable housing with 0 funding. And the RHNA numbers have been proven. The HCD was audited. The RHNA numbers have been proven to be false. Newsom's housing goal is false. The whole structure of the housing crisis and all the bills is a house of cards. It's undemocratic. It's unconstitutional. And, I know that there's some people in here that don't believe this, but it is a fact that the same people, the same billionaire land investors and land developers that put Donald Trump in the White House are the same billionaires and land investors that are funding our state legislature, California YIMBY, and the whole bit. And it's up to the citizens of California to stop this.
We're at the end of time. Thank you. Next speaker. Are there any questions for that?
Yes, you can go to the lectern
Okay, thank you.
and speak. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Elliot Hudson, 109 Bacon Court, Lafayette. 3 minutes isn't enough. And it's hard to know where to start because there's been a certain change here. The thing is, when Lafayette residents talk about loving the character of Lafayette, we really, really mean it. For 30 years, Lafayette residents have consistently, in response to surveys, and again, 4 years ago, prioritized a semi-rural ambiance for this town as what they want it to look like. I appreciate a lot of work has gone into this, these draft standards. There's a lot good in them. But what they're not is if you adopt them tonight as written, they will not build a Lafayette that maintains its semi-rural ambiance. And they need to be tweaked to do that. Town character isn't lost all at once. It's lost one building at a time. And we don't want to keep losing one single building. Semi-rural ambiance really means something. When the first slides were put up about the goals they designed to, it talked about small town character. There was nothing about semi-rural ambiance, and that is in fact what they did. The purpose section that you just saw up there that prioritized semi-rural ambiance isn't what was drafted to begin with and isn't what guided these guidelines. How do I know that? Because what they put up was what I sent you 4 days ago and not what was in their prior draft. And furthermore, it left out the critical first paragraph that says the primary purpose of these objective standards is to visually implement the Lafayette mission statement to make Lafayette a small town community with a semi-rural ambiance. That, we really mean that. Lafayette residents fought hard to get that into the mission statement just 3 years ago. It was adopted unanimously by the city council, and then we've watched into dismay for 3 years while it's been ignored entirely by this city. Staff never quotes it. Commissions weren't even aware of it. Or if they were, it was never emphasized by the city council. You are the people who are going to tell Lafayette what it can look like for the next generation, for the rest of my life. There's a lot good in these standards. I appreciate that. But they do not command a semi-rural ambiance. They're details. You can't have flat roofs like Walnut Creek has. You have to have, and I'm not an architect, so you have to have hips or other things to make them look semi-rural. If you look at the pictures out there, every one you look at that says that you can say this is semi-rural doesn't have a flat roof. You can't have too much glass. You can't have too many panes.
Can we wrap this up?
1,000 doing for a massive building is not bad. But a lot of what else these standards allow in a single building might look okay. But if you spread that through buildings after building in Lafayette, you've lost this town. It won't be a semi-rural ambiance. That's what we want. That's what the mission statement that the city council adopted commands. These standards need to be tweaked to give that effect. Thank you.
We do have one hand raised on Zoom. Dawn, I'm going to, let's see, promote you and then Dawn, I see you declined. If you would like to speak, please accept the promotion to panelist.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, I just wanted to emphasize what Elliot Hudson just said as far as ensuring that the ODSs maintain the main mission statement of Lafayette, which is for the highly desirable small town community with a small rural ambiance. I have questions that I sent in on an email earlier today, and I don't know if this is an appropriate time to ask them or send them into the city staff to have them looked at and responded to.
You can repeat the questions now.
Okay. I was at the open house earlier and I saw, I did not see much addressing sole commercial properties when they're turned over. So I was wondering if 3 stories is gonna be a possibility on the south end of Mount Diablo, south end of Mount Diablo Boulevard on the east end.
Yes, it's zoned that way. That zoning hasn't changed on most of the east end.
The zoning hasn't changed on the east end south, but the height of the buildings, is that still 3-story? The C1 there without the 60?
I believe all except for 2 of those, or all of them are 35 feet.
Okay, thank you. And I incorrectly, in number 2, my question on number 2, mentioned about 175-foot tall buildings, which is obviously not the case, so that's great. But on the back side, on the north side of Mount Diablo Boulevard, it looks like there will be higher stories allowed, even though it's a scenic corridor designated by the state. Has that been looked at as far as allowing such high?
That was part of the zoning meetings, not part of DRC.
Zoning, okay. And then there was supposed to be a survey and it was cut for some reason out to the general public. I did not see that many people at the open house tonight. So I was wondering how many people and what, was the spread of input coming in from the June and July meetings? How many people from the public were included?
They're all publicly announced. I don't have a record of how many people. Okay, need to wrap that up. Are you done?
No, there's one other question about limiting visibility of parking, and the location will be difficult if we're on the east end required to move parking from the front to, different configurations towards the side and the back, especially for the auto-oriented section of the commercial east end. So that needs to be considered.
Well, that's future development. Nobody's taking away the entrances as they exist now.
I know, except that the
Okay, so we need to wrap this up.
objectives
Thank you.
address that.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments?
There are no hands raised.
Do our consultants need any rebuttal period or answer anything? Okay, we're going to open this up for commissioner comments. The way I would like to do this is to have each,
Chair, I apologize. I would like to offer some words that actually I'm going to take from Monica earlier in our meeting in response to the comment about public outreach from
Yes.
our last commenter. Monica, I think you put it perfectly. These standards are very difficult to come up with. And so the goal, I think, of the joint meeting that started off this process was to develop a process by which the public can be very successfully engaged. We've all heard the comment designed by committee, which is often sneered at because it's very difficult to do and to reach consensus. So the goal of this process is that this draft that has now been developed by our working group is the public's thing to respond to. Instead of us all sitting in a room and inviting as much of the public as possible and starting from scratch, which would be very difficult to reach consensus and develop a draft, we've come up with a draft which now the public can respond to, and we're very interested to hear what they have to say. But that's why we didn't start with the survey. So we're now trying to facilitate as much feedback as possible. And this, as you said, all future public hearings will also be noticed. This item will be heard by the Planning Commission as well as the City Council, and we'll do as much outreach as we can to ensure that as many people as possible know about it and can give their feedback. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're opening this up for commissioner comments. What I would like to do is have each commissioner make their comments, but then I would like to, at the end, to sort of do a consensus on decisions that need to be made. So for instance, is um, the paragraph on the energy code, do we strike that? Do we leave that in? Do we amend it? So I'd like to go, I'm trying to keep a list and go through item by item. That at one point in time, we will try to edit out and clean up the document. So who wants to start first? John, you started. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, I just have a couple of things that go into the, sorry. I just have a couple of things that go into the realm of comment rather than questions. It's not as long a list. I started to talk about the windows, which is in 6-3907. And the third option with the lintel, I would suggest we consider adding a requirement for a small projection of that lintel, just to get away from how flat that could be otherwise. And I would suggest an inch or an inch and a half as an appropriate number.
You'd also mentioned when you were out in the hall, excuse me, but about unless it's under an overhang.
Yes, I would say if it's under an overhang, if it's recessed within a balcony or something like that, then this wouldn't apply. The next one, I may have just been a typo, but under privacy and views, the 63908B, open perimeters of balconies and decks, ... must incorporate an opaque wall of at least 4 feet in height. Maybe that's supposed to be 42 inches. I think that makes more sense. It should be below eye level, not above eye level. And then regarding color on building materials and colors, 63911, near the building colors item E below that. And we talked about this outside at the display. The 5% reflectance, in my view, is too dark to be the dominant building color for any building. It is just almost black. But as an accent material, it seems like it could work well with certain designs. I would suggest limiting the percentage of a facade, and I would look to our consultants for their expertise in quantifying color. The real dark shouldn't be more than 25% of a facade area or something like that. Could you on the fly recommend something that we could consider this evening?
If you want to prevent the primary color from being anything too dark, I would recommend a light reflecting value. Instead of 5 as the minimum, we could make it 30. So from 30 to 80 would be my proposal. And then as far as the trim, so allowing those darker colors that you mentioned, so between 5 and 30, could be limited to something as small as 20% of the building. It depends on if you want it to be just the trim or if it's allowed to be maybe more of an accent.
Yeah, I think an accent element could be a strongly contrasting color.
Okay.
That could be dark. I'm not after trying to totally limit designers here, but just not the dominant color.
Understood.
So if 30 colors darker than 30 shall not exceed 20% of a building color scheme, something like that. And that is my comments. Thank you.
No comments? Richard?
I don't have any comments. I mean, I think if there's discussion on specific items, happy to, but since I was involved in the working group, I don't have anything at this point.
Well, I would be interested in feedback on the comments that I made, whether you agree or disagree.
Sure, is that your intention?
Yeah, and my intention is to go through that when we have all the comments. Well, as drafting the standards, I was involved in the process. There's a couple of things the public should know. One of the things is we thought that it would be very valuable to look at objective standards from other cities. It turned out to be not so valuable. Okay. Because you look at cities that you think, well, this is a semi-rural character, or parts of the city have semi-rural character, like Mill Valley or Danville, and you realize is that none of their requirements require an upzoning of those areas, and therefore they can maintain in that section of their city the ambience that they want. Unfortunately, in Lafayette, it's on Mount Diablo Boulevard that the changes are occurring. And so we don't have the same luxury as the Danville, the Piedmont, Mill Valley, the numerous places that we looked at, okay? We looked at, you know, like in Mill Valley, percent public area, private versus public, so on and so forth. We had discussions about, are roof decks really needed? Are they actually used? Do they make sense? Are we pushing something that is rising the cost to the developer and not functioning in the capacity that we want it to? We are letting the zoning ordinance basically dictate what open spaces are required in what areas of the zones. We created a lot of numbers, okay? And those numbers are, I think, a first crack at what we want, okay? I'm hoping that this document is not cast in stone and never gets changed for the next 15 years. I don't see it being that way. We will need to make adjustments as we see projects come in and we see what's happening. You know, do the developers, are they using this standard or not, okay? We made a very conscious attempt to not make this so difficult that everyone will come in with density bonus projects and mitigate everything that we were trying to do. And so are we going to get everything? My opinion is no, we're not going to get everything that we want. Are we going to get a good portion of what we want? I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that will be what happens. But until we actually see developers come in and what they want to do, we're at the mercy of those developers. And by the way, the developers say, oh, we have to sell this thing. You know, we have common sense about what's going to sell. Let us do what we want. Okay. So we're not doing that. Okay. The objective standards are tougher than what they might want, but it is a pathway for them to go through that ministerial process. Okay. What I'd like to do is address some specific comments. I'm going to actually start with Mr. Hudson's comments first. Even though he didn't re-raise them, hopefully you've looked at the attachments that came in for letters. So the first thing is that he has introduced a revision of the number one item on the purpose and calls out more judiciously the mission statement, so on and so forth. Do we want to adopt this revision or leave it the way it is? And what are the comments? And do you know what that is? I mean, I can actually read it to you. I think I copied it somewhere. Bear with me. Okay, it starts out, the primary purpose of these objective standards is to visually implement the Lafayette mission statement, objective to make Lafayette a small-town community with semi-rural ambience. To do that requires to seek the following, and then the listing is pretty much what we had. So do we want to introduce the additional paragraph that he has suggested or table it?
I mean, offhand, it seems a little redundant. I mean, what's here now, the first item A says integrate semi-rural character on the design elements. So number 2 is traditional design and contemporary elements with Lafayette semi-rural character. I mean, I don't understand what
Okay.
is, do you agree? I mean,
Yeah, I thought that it was okay. I mean, I thought it was okay the way it was stated,
the way it's in here now.
the way that
Yeah,
we had stated.
I would say that.
Okay, no change?
I would agree.
Okay. Second item. He's questioned 100 feet is substantially too long for roof form. And he is concerned about flat stumpy roofs. So again, the 100 feet, we looked at buildings like the Mercantile that was generally accepted, improved. We looked at the Brannan building, several others. So 100 feet represents some of the existing structures that have pitched, hipped, gabled roofs that we had no problem with. Is 100 too long or not? And then I think we revised one statement on flat roofs that limiting them to 50. And that is on paragraph,
3903, I think. So,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we talked about this a fair amount in the working.
Yeah, so this is 3903 A3 and A itself. 100 feet. So we okay with that?
Yeah, so flat roof is now, the extent of flat roof is limited to 50 feet in
Yeah.
this item 3.
Yeah. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I would say
that's-
yeah.
I would say.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Next item, fenestrations. Is it necessary to specify the maximum size of panes without large windows? Compliance currently could be achieved by simply making large windows slide open. Solutions might include specifying a maximum size of pane in terms of square footage or providing a table that specifies min number of panes. So I think we have the maximum size is, was it 16? No. Bear with me,
18 square feet.
18.
Mhm.
And actually, I looked at something today and 18 is too low. Because actually that would mean that we have to split up sliding glass doors into panes. And not everyone's going to want French doors.
Mm.
So, and that would put it at, I think, 22.5 or something like that. 22.5 square feet. So, I mean, we can make an exception for sliding glass doors. We can leave the windows the way that we have them now so that they're not large and large volume.
I think it would be simpler just to change the number, increase it.
Okay, John, what do you think?
I thought that the exception for sliding glass doors would likely keep the intent more the way we want it.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I think making the exception for sliding glass doors to whatever it works out to be, 86 inches by 80, divide by 2, divide by 144, 22.5, I don't know, 22.7.
Or are you proposing?
Well,
to
I'm
accept?
I'm thinking most sliding glass doors are going to be 86 inches wide, you know, although they could be 90.
If you want to limit it to the 86.
Yeah, the 86.
I like that recommendation. The standard size, not the extra large slider,
Okay,
should be allowed.
so
Others?
can you just work out that number for us? I'll give you, it's 80 times 86. That would be a double door. Divide by 2, divide by 144 square inches into square feet, and you have how many square feet of basically fenestration. Okay, next item.
So can I just would like to clarify, so the decision is to increase that area to the size of a door that's
Only for the doors.
only for doors.
Leave the
Gotcha.
windows, leave the windows at smaller size
gotcha, okay.
and sliding doors up to a maximum of,
So just to point out though, I mean, in a design, you may want to have fixed panes that are the same size as a sliding glass door. I mean, that would not be unusual.
yeah, well,
I would think that would be an advantage of actually just increasing the square footage rather than trying to make an exception. If it's a sliding glass door, then you get into.
except that what happens is maybe it's on a balcony and the rail hides part of it. So that covers the balcony, but then when it's in the middle of the facade and it's apparent, it's a now big, huge window. I sort of like
So-
the reduced size.
It's a
you
small,
know,
it's a small increment. Yeah.
okay,
What-
are we still?
What is the difference between that we're talking
Between
about?
18 and 22-ish. I'm just saying, rather than making an exception for sliding glass doors, it's not uncommon in a house or in a residence, I mean, condos or whatever, to have panes of, you have sliding doors, you also have adjacent panes of glass that are of a similar size, so there's a rhythm to the window setup. So having, what this would do is have, the doors would be allowed, but then the windows on the sides would be different sizes. I'm just pointing. that
Well,
out.
maybe we make it at balconies. Maybe the restriction is larger at balconies.
You know, we have a maximum total glazing percentage that I think would also serve to contain this from the sort of big glassy aesthetic that.
Well, the problem is they don't like the really large, the complaint by some of the public is that we get these large, massive glass structures.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, understood.
And so the feeling is that to get the semi-rural characters, the smaller we make the windows, the less likely that it will overwhelm.
Then I'm agreeing that we keep the 18 square feet.
And just limit the
And
door.
make an exception for the limited size sliding glass door.
Okay, we're-
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly. I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Okay, so we're gonna live with the consensus here. Okay, building materials. So we had some limitations like stucco and cement, 70%. Again, one of the comments that came in when we were looking at buildings, what we liked, what we didn't like, what the public liked, what the public didn't like, is if you go to any street corner, four buildings on the street corner, the one that has the most stucco is usually the one that is least desirable architecturally. And so the idea is we were trying to get away from just massive stucco structures. And the contractors would like 90%. Is 70 a livable number, or what do you think?
I mean, it's the number we came up with. Whether it's the right number,
I mean, it's,
I don't know.
without seeing a lot of examples of plus and minus, it's hard to really know. It seems sort of like it's sort of right.
Okay,
But I would add to that question, something Mayor Kendall mentioned, we were all talking outside, is, you know, concrete and she said the concrete block, but I think actually she meant, she would think of stucco concrete block. But anyway, concrete and stucco are so similar that we might consider not allowing them to be considered separate materials, but you can have a 70% maximum of any combination of concrete and stucco. But to me, I think that was a valid point.
Cal, can you address that? We had a paragraph where under primary that it limited so that if stucco was the primary, stucco couldn't be the secondary. And we also added a paragraph so that where we had concrete masonry units and they had a stucco finish on it, that made it equivalent to a stucco wall. And therefore it was, under the maximum level. So I'm not sure that, concrete might be also like that, but concrete, you get more plank formed concrete and other systems. So I'm not sure that the appearance needs to be, or always comes out that way. Whereas the cinder block, as you notice, cinder block and stucco will always look the same as stucco.
All right, if you feel that it's addressed, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Okay, let me go to some additional comments. Okay, so first of all, we all agree that if we pass the resolution, that the approval will go to the planning commission. That's agreement.
Sure.
Secondly, we would like to adopt the presentation boards as an appendix to the standards. Is that agreeable? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Third, we'll have John's comment about the structural functionality thing. Why don't we just struck that paragraph or
For
that
the column,
item?
yeah.
Okay. John's comment about the energy code and we'll drop that comment. I thought we had dropped
Yeah, I
that
thought we
comment.
had too.
Okay. John's comment on the lintel depth of 1 to 1.5 inches, except under overhangs and balconies for the window type 3 is acceptable to everyone. Unless it's under an overhang and you wouldn't see it, or on a balcony.
Just a quick suggestion, you should pick one number, not a range, just to.
Okay, so
Effective.
let's do
Uh-huh.
let's do 1 inch.
1 inch,
Yeah.
it's a minimum.
Well, John, which one do you prefer? It's
I'd
your-
have to see a mock-up, quite honestly. I think it's okay.
You, John? Let's live
One is
with
fine
1
with me.
inch. Okay. 1 is better than nothing, right? Okay, we have the 30-degree angle. Do we amend that or strike that paragraph, or what do we want to do?
What would we change it to?
We would just
Just delete it? Is that? the
just
idea?
delete it. We don't have everything on privacy covered anyhow. We're sort of relying on the developers coming up with a reasonable approach, because obviously they're going to be building next to another building and they got to sell those units, and unless they want a handshake between neighbors. So I say strike the clause or
I'm looking
strike
to
that
see-
paragraph.
Can we be
or-
specific? I'm
Yeah,
looking,
sure.
'cause I'm trying to find it.
It's 63908,
39, okay.
second page.
7. Oh. There it is.
And my point was, I just didn't see that the angled window is effective as a privacy mitigation measure.
in a way, I sort of agree, because if it's a bay window, you got one that's direct and two that are slanted. Okay,
So we're deleting, just to be super clear, so it's that 3908C1, where it says be a minimum 30 degrees measured perpendicular to the adjacent side setback line. Is that what we're doing?
yes,
But the other two stay, the minimum sill height
Yeah,
and the.
yes.
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then the color will adopt the 30 to 80% for the primary color. And trim will be 5 to 80 and limited to no more than 20% of the facade. Are there any
Yes.
other changes that commissioners want? Okay, so I'm,
Consultant, they look like they have a.
Yeah.
opinion.
I do have one question. Commissioner Gray, you had mentioned in horizontal articulation, a base must be defined, ways of defining a base, and one method was a colonnades. We had recommended that they'd had to be like part of the building and structural. Shall we strike the non-structural, not permitted?
Yeah, I thought we read that already. I'm sorry. Did we agree on
yeah,
that one?
yeah, we did agree on that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make the resolution. And so the resolution is, do I have to make a statement about CEQA?
No,
Okay,
just for clarity, so everyone knows, the housing element includes two programs, including one to implement this phase 2 of ODS. And so the EIR was for the housing element covers this implementation.
okay.
There's no further analysis required.
So we want to adopt the resolution with the 12 items that we had listed roughly of change. Do I have a second on that?
So I'm sorry, so you were recommending to the planning commission, is that?
Yeah, we're recommending that it goes to the planning
No,
commission.
but I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item. New public hearing. We have project DR 0424, GR 0524, and TP 12-24. This is at Lafayette Circle, 221 Lafayette Circle. It is a 3-story single-family residence that includes an attached garage, an ADU, some moving of earth, removal of one flowering pear tree. And Nicole will be the staff representative. Thank you, our consultants. Okay,
Thank you.
okay, so Nicole, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Cass, and good evening, everyone. Tonight, I will be presenting this design review application for development at 221 Lafayette Circle. For some context, this parcel is located in the downtown along Lafayette Circle in the Shield Block area. It is currently a asphalt parking lot and surrounded by other residential uses. These images are taken from Lafayette Circle, looking back into the property. Again, it is an asphalt parking lot, and we can see the surrounding residential areas, rented condos and apartments. This parcel is accessed from the flag portion or the pole portion of the flag lot off of Lafayette Circle. Looking into what is proposed, it's proposing a new 3-story residence. The first floor, an ADU and a garage, and then on the second and third floor as part of the primary residence. I was informed by the applicant corrections to the areas of living space. So for the primary, so the main house is 2,487 square feet, and the ADU on the ground floor is 548 square feet, which brings the total living area to 3,035 square feet. This property is in the residential business zoning district, and residential uses are permitted. So this single family with attached ADU is allowed per the zoning district. The proposal also complies with the required setbacks of the zoning district. It's at least 10 feet from the side and rear yard and greater than 10 feet from the front. On the screen is showing the proposed elevations to demonstrate the proposed massing and articulation with the various windows and stepping of some of the upper story elements, as well as some covered porches and outdoor areas. As previously mentioned, this proposed development is surrounded by other apartments and residential units. It is a maximum height of 35 feet, which is allowed by the zoning district, and it is taller in height than some of the surrounding uses. But given the distance and proposed screening and location on the property, privacy impacts are found to be sufficiently mitigated. It's most visible from 930 Huff, which is the property behind this subject property. And I'll go into, on the next slide, the landscaping that would screen the residence. So shown on the screen is the proposed planting plan. On the left, I've called out the proposed Italian cypresses that would screen 930 Huff from the current or the subject property. And this would be along the western side of the property. They're proposing some majestic beauty trees. So as part of the project description, they are removing 2 protected trees in the commercial zoning district, but they are proposing to plant 17 trees. All of the 17 trees have been included in the staff report as protected. The proposed colors and materials are keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Shown on the screen, we can see the 2-toned proposed colors. There are also elements such as the fence and the redwood kind of archway and landscaping to kind of help soften the facade when appeared from the ground level. In this slide, I wanted to kind of explain some of the project-specific conditions of approval that were in the draft staff report. So first off, this application was referred to our outside referral agencies, and the main comment we received back was from our city engineering service manager who requested that the sidewalk along along Lafayette Circle be ADA compliant. So that is a project-specific condition. This project is also exempt under CEQA under AB 130. And as a part of that exemption, there are conditions that would apply to the project. So those are included as a draft. And I also wanted to note that there are conditions number 22 and 23, which are currently drafted as holds on issuance, the applicant has already complied with. And finally, in the staff report, it referenced a condition of approval for a ground penetrating radar survey. After consultation with the city staff and the applicant, it was determined that it was not asked for under AB 130, so the city cannot requirement. Hence, my recommendation will be updated to remove this condition. The project was noticed to surrounding neighbors and posted at least 10 days before this meeting. We did receive 2 public comments that were received after publication of the staff report and were shared with the commissioners and published available to the public today. One of the comments was regarding the drainage of the site, which was referred to our city engineer, and he addressed saying that basically the drainage basin that the public commenter had recommended is not required in this circumstance, and that the drainage that is proposed is adequate. We also received another comment from the property owner of 231 Lafayette Circle, which is an apartment complex, and they expressed concern for the shading that the new residents would potentially go towards, or the shading that would occur to that property. And then also concern about the character, that character, have the proposal match the character of the neighborhood. These comments were shared with the applicant, and if the commission would like them to address, they are available to do so. So staff has reviewed the project against the required findings and recommends that the Design Review Commission find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt Design Review Commission Resolution 2025-19, approving the project subject to conditions, removing condition number 21, which is the ground penetrating radar survey condition. Thank you.
Questions for Nicole? I have one question.
Yes.
How come we do not have permeable pavers for the driveway and it's all concrete?
That is a good question. I think I'll yield to the applicant and the applicant team to address that.
Nicole, I have a question. There is, in my package, and I guess everybody's package, there is only one colored facade image. It's a elevation perspective and the cover sheet. Are there any, have we been provided with any colored elevations of other facades?
No, this is the only colored elevation provided.
Thank you.
Okay, applicant, you have 10 minutes for presentation.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Rick Rosenbaum. I'm the senior project manager with Lennox Homes. I want to thank staff for the comprehensive presentation there. It seems like Nicole and I have gone to the same PowerPoint school, and so many of my slides may be repetitive, so I will fast forward through a few of those to avoid repetition. Will you be controlling the slides? Great, thank you. Nicole did a nice job explaining the dimensions of the lot, a little bit of a history of the lot itself. We, as many of you know, developed the 210 Lafayette Circle condominium project across the street a couple of years ago. In that process, we acquired this parcel mainly for a staging area for our construction. Given that that was a small site, we needed this to store materials and have a construction office. This site itself had a residence on it that functioned as a business, I believe, up until the mid-90s, and then it was demolished by the previous owner and paved as a parking lot. We acquired this site with the ultimate goal of developing it with some type of residential use. I think it was always our intention to develop a residence that would house more than one household. So it was important for us to explore those opportunities. Early on, we met with the fire district, knowing that a flag lot has many constraints from an access perspective, and it became clear that a single-family home with an ADU would be the highest and best use for the site. So we started with that in mind. Next slide, please. I think Nicole has showed many of the constraints here of existing buildings and the narrow access point. We wanted to create a residence that was very inviting for not only the new resident, but the existing residents and neighbors as well. So we took great care to create treatments at the entrance, because that's your sense of entry when you're living there, and also landscape treatments and window treatments of the residents internally once you access the lot. Next slide, please. This shows you the maximum building envelope in the red there. We've haven't used the entire allowable envelope, but we've allowed the 10-foot minimum setbacks on each side. That only allows a 23-foot wide house at the front and a 20-foot wide house at the rear. So you can see what the constraints are for a building like that. Next slide. This, as Nicole said, this home is permitted by right under the city's RB zoning. Our team, which is here tonight, our landscape architect and our house architect, is here as well to answer any questions or provide additional information as needed. We were very attentive to the lot characteristics and its location, sensitive and thoughtful to the surrounding multifamily uses that we have, reflective of the city's zoning and design guidelines. And as I said, we spent a lot of time with the fire district to make sure we designed a building that would be compliant and that we could satisfy the conditions that they've provided for the project already in their preliminary review. Per Nicole's staff report, the project is consistent with the general plan, maintains the character of the neighborhood, complies with the goals and intent of the downtown's core general plan and the downtown retail district and the downtown specific plan, and meets all the development standards of the retail business district. We made very sure we came here tonight not asking for any exceptions. Next slide, please. First floor of this home primarily is the garage and the entry, and then the ADU in the rear. It's a good sized unit at 550 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, with a private access to part of the yard there. We provided some obscure glass on one side, so when the resident is in the kitchen or in the bathroom, they won't be seeing the other resident of the home in the yard that's on the left side of the house. So again, we've taken a lot of care in making sure that this building, which is on a smaller lot, enjoys privacy. Next slide. The second floor, which is about 1,300 square feet, is the main living area. It's got the living, dining room, and the owner's suite on it as well, and a small laundry area as well for the owner on that level. Next slide. Top level is secondary bedrooms, a nice sized loft, and then a rear facing deck, which complements the ground floor open space of the unit. As Nicole said, the architectural style is consistent with the other projects in Lafayette Circle. We've used stepped roof forms and to reduce the bulk, use some graduated transitions between the building levels, varied roof lines to soften the appearance, stepped walls and roof plane to try to create some interest with the building, a varied material palette, which we can talk more about, which I know Commissioner Gray mentioned wanting more information on that, to again create an interesting building with kind of a contemporary yet traditional look to it, and then used landscaping to screen many of the elements. Next slide. You've seen this slide already. To John's comment about Commissioner Gray's comment about the sides and rears, that slide you see there talks about the materials that will be painted similar colors on the sides and rears. So if you look at the reference to the alabaster color, it says all the stucco, the fascias and trim, and the board and batten siding will be painted that alabaster color no matter what side of the building it's on. The same goes for the dark charcoal iron ore color. It's primarily used on the lap siding that wraps just that front corner of the building on the right and the garage door itself. And then some trim, fascia trims, and the metal roofing is similar dark color. So I hope that answers that question. Next slide. The landscaping, we used 17 box trees located throughout the project to kind of create screening and also mitigate the one protected tree we're going to be removing to build the driveway. Interesting plant palette of varied colors and textures. Some of the samples are up there for you to view. We use quality materials with attention to detail and where we place those materials. We used decorative masonry retaining wall to replace the failing wood wall that's on the right side of the property to provide long-term stability. A stamped colored concrete apron at the entrance to Lafayette Circle, also at the entrance to the garage itself. Solid fencing with lattice on top to kind of maximize the height, but also reduce the massing of that. It's important to screen the sides and rears of this building with the other buildings that are looking into it. And then some decorative bollard lighting along the driveway to aid access and leaving the driveway at night. Next slide. I got a couple more here. that's the overall landscape. Whoop, back one. Well, this one's fine. This shows some of the surrounding uses that we were trying to address, our team of designers, to both screen them from our house, but also screen, as important, screen our residents from those uses as well. The 231 Lafayette Circle apartment building, you can see the top image there is along the driveway. There's some existing trees that are being maintained. And in fact, the retaining wall is kind of jogging around that tree so we can keep it as is and not do much pruning. That helps screen that building from us primarily. And then some of the trees we're planting along the side and rear help screen those taller buildings that you see at 939 Huff, and also those back decks at 231 Lafayette Circle. We also plant some trees along that lower mast apartment building as well. Next slide, please. This shows the detail of the driveway, the stamped concrete at the entrance. We worked with the neighbor there to remove a couple trees. We will be removing a couple trees and replacing them with some new trees on the right of the driveway to help screen the front of that apartment building, and then planting a couple of trees to augment the existing tree along the left side of the driveway where our house and the existing 215 Lafayette Circle interface as well. You can see the kind of the treatment there for the retaining wall, which will be upgraded from wood to masonry with a redwood fence on top of it, and then some plantings along the masonry wall, some shrubs, and also some climbing vines to help soften that for our resident as they enter and leave the site. To answer Commissioner Cass's question about the pervious paver driveways, this driveway is meant to be concrete and it will drain into that planter strip. We've had not good luck with pervious paving driveways over the long haul. Some of the soils we have here are kind of expansive and they look great when you install them, but over time they tend to move around and heave, and we prefer to have more of a solid surface. So that was our design solution there. Next slide. This is the main building area towards the back. As you see, the residence there is kind of set back from the existing structures as much as possible. And obviously we realized the need to provide screening for both sides of the fence. So the intent is to plant some tall cypress along the back that are evergreen, and then some flowering ornamental trees along the right side as well to screen primarily our building from the existing parking lot that's next to us and the apartment project. In all, we have, I think I said, 17 24-inch box trees between those three species. Next slide. That's again the rendering, and just to kind of wrap it up, the project you see here tonight is consistent with all the underlying planning documents and meets all the zoning standards, and we look forward to a positive outcome of consideration. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions. I've got the architect and the landscape designer here as well for any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? None. Okay. Any comments from the public? Any Zoom comments?
There are no hands raised.
Okay. No need for rebuttal. So who wants to start this discussion? Richard?
I think it's a nice design. I guess that's what I would say. I think it's sort of a difficult site, it being very much an infill with parking lots and all of that. But after studying it, I really don't have any comments. I think it could work.
John?
I almost completely agree with Richard. You know, on a site like this, there is little else you really could do if you want to get this program there. And I think it's a good solution. In general, I think the character is nice. There's interest in the form, and it holds together. My one concern or comment, if you were in the last meeting, you would guess, The dark color looks very, and on this facade right here, I would say it looks odd to me. It's like a two-faced building. There is such contrast. And as I go around the corner, and I try to imagine the elevation that I see on your drawing A2, and I try to, anything with horizontals would be almost black. It's kind of a,
Just in the corner.
you know, here and here. Could you go to your drawing A2? Is that, just so I'm sure I understand it?
I thought he said that the dark was only wrapping around the corner.
Anything with the horizontal lap siding is the dark charcoal color, yes?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So
wrapped on the right side of the
becomes this
building.
very, very, so on your right side elevation.
Right side only, yeah.
As
There you go.
on your front elevation, it's a very, very bold kind of irregular checkerboard. And I would say I would prefer to see less contrast. I like the idea of different materials, but going almost black and white is really strong. I don't object to your alabaster color. I would like to see the intensity of the contrast quieted down a little bit. Other than that, I think it's a nice solution.
I agree with the color comments from the previous commissioner. I have a few questions. One about the metal roofing and how that noise would affect the apartments surrounding. Two, did you consider crushed granite for the driveway? And three, how will the lighting on the rear deck affect the apartments in the rear? I guess to all three sides in the rear.
Sure, I can answer those questions. The metal roof sound, I don't think it's going to have much of an impact. We've used this on other projects, and I've never heard that has been an issue from surrounding property owners or the residents themselves who live in the building. Perhaps the architect could comment on that. I'd be interested in his feedback on the color comment as well. We obviously want to build a building that is visually appealing. I know these color renderings are helpful, but they don't always reflect reality when you build the building. So I'd be interested to hear his comments on the color scheme as well. Regarding the crushed granite driveway, we did not consider that. I think we don't feel that that's a high quality solution for a project like this, that a solid concrete stamped driveway is going to be more of an appealing solution. And again, I think we've designed it so the storm water runoff runs into the planter, so there shouldn't be much of a runoff issue there at all. Regarding the rear deck, that's actually covered. It's hard to tell from the drawings, but the deck itself is a covered deck on the third floor, so I don't think the lighting glare is going to be an issue. Oftentimes we'll use recessed lights in those ceilings as well, in addition to a wall sconce.
Okay, Travis? Okay, I agree with most of the commissioner's comments. Good use of the site. A little uncomfortable on the fact that we didn't go with permeable pavers, which sort of sets a precedence negative to what we've had everywhere else on a project like this. There's no great slope to the driveway, and it's been very successful in many locations in Lafayette, okay, when we all have the same soil. So that's one thing. I understand that the concrete, if it's poured correctly and sloped correctly, it will feed the feeder beds better than the permeable pavers. But again, I'm not sure that that's the way you're going to landscape it. My main objection is actually the Italian cypress in the back. It's not in compliance with the 2023 CAL FIRE code, which is basically taking out highly flammable shrubbery within a 30 feet defensible area of the building. And I highly suggest that you look at the YouTube video put on by Marin Fire about Italian cypress, and you'll take them off your projects. It's really highly flammable. Those people that are literally 10 feet away, you'll be scorching the outside of that building if they ever catch fire. So I think that there's other substitutes, a Pacific wax myrtle or Toyon or something that will give you the height that you're looking for without having that high flammability to it. And I agree highly with John's comment. I didn't realize that so much of it was going to be that dark gray black appearance. And I think that's too much of a contrast, and that needs to be toned down. That color needs to be toned down. Are we ready to make a resolution?
So just one comment on the pavers, excuse me, the city engineer in his comments discussed that, having to do with the drainage.
Yes, I've pulled up the city engineer comments. Like I had said, he responded to a public comment, and I'm going to read from his email saying most projects in Lafayette seek to dissipate runoff to landscaping as this is the most cost-effective approach. At times, permeable pavers are incorporated into the project for driveways and patios. The permeable paver systems typically require a sub-drain system. This project on 221 is on a very flat lot, and the use of permeable pavers may not be possible at this. May place the outlet of the subdrain below the flow line of the curb in the street. The design does incorporate splash blocks and dissipation into landscaping to the fullest extent practicable. As such, it is in compliance with the Clean Water Guidebook. And
Okay, thank you. Somehow I missed that comment too. Okay, do we have a resolution?
So I'm happy to make a motion that we find the project exempt from CEQA with staff recommended conditions, and so then help me with the additional ones. One would be to find a substitute to the Italian cypress in the landscaping on the, I'm going to call it the south property line. Coming up with a lighter accent color than the iron ore, I think was the color selection, to be approved by staff if does that work for you guys. Anything else?
That's it.
That's it. So that's my motion.
Second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, wrapping this up, other business. We have no other business. Commissioners' reports, none. And I do have a question. Our next regular meeting on Monday has been canceled.
Correct.
And I looked at the agenda and it doesn't even address whether there's an ARC. Is there an ARC on Friday after Thanksgiving, or you're off on holiday?
No, the city offices are closed next Thursday, the 27th, and Friday, the 28th for Thanksgiving. We'll reopen on December 1st. It looks like the next scheduled ARC meeting is the 12th. So following the regularly scheduled DRC meeting on December 8th.
Okay, thank you. And do we have a staff liaison report?
None.
Okay, we're adjourned for the evening.